I'd like to introduce our guest speaker today. He was generous enough to speak for the second time. The first time he spoke about Facebook ads. If you guys recall that, but it was an awesome meeting. That was before the office was remodeled. So it was kind of painful thinking about that time. But let's give a round of applause for Tom. Thank you so much.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning, Tom.
One of the things that we learned at Tom Ferry is if you're not doing it yet, you need to be doing video. So that's what I'm doing here.
Really?
Yep. So just give me a second to get this guy fired up. So while that's getting ready here, let me ask a question. Of all the agents here, who got licensed to 2012 or later? 2012. 2012. 2012? Okay.
1998.
No. From after 2012. A few. The reason I ask is 2012 is primarily when the short sales from the last catastrophe kind of died down. So if you've been licensed from 2012, chances are you haven't done one yet. So that's the next question. How many of you have done a short sale? Okay, quite a few. Quite a few. That's good.
How many like doing them?
Yeah, I may want to do another one.
I am one of the few
What bank you're dealing with.
that really enjoy doing them. And that's because I love challenges. So, okay, a little bit of my background. I did my first short sale in 2006. I remember it like it was yesterday. It was an absolute catastrophe. It took 8 months, and I think I made $200 because I had to give them. The bank absolutely had no idea what was going on, and I had to keep throwing in my commission to keep the bank interested in moving forward. Best year, I don't remember whether it was 2008, 2009. I had 40 short sale listings that year. And as I said, short sales pretty much have died out since 2012. I've closed 2 recently in the beginning of the year. In a way, kind of the easiest short sale that I've had to do because they were probate short sales. So when the lender asks, so why did the mortgage holder default? They died. There was absolute silence on the other side. So it's possible to do a short sale with a probate. A lot of families, they'll say, well, I don't want to deal with it, and the bank just takes it back. But it is possible to do that as well. So one of the reasons that probably really drove Matt to ask me to do this is Mitchell, myself, and Matt, we attended the Tom Ferry conference a couple of weeks ago. And one of the big important pieces of information that he wanted to pass on to all the agents was you have 18 months and there's going to be a major shift in the market. Do as many transactions as you can, hang your lazy pants up in the closet and really bust it and stash money away. Because if you don't want to do short sales, you don't want to do REOs, there's a good chance that there will be a change coming up in about 18 months. He also had Steve Harney. He does Keeping Current Matters. He's one of the best in the real estate world as far as feeding us information about what the financial experts are predicting and how it will affect the real estate market. And they're all predicting pretty much 2020, there is going to be a economic adjustment, otherwise known as a recession. It shouldn't affect the real estate market, so it's important to know that. But what potentially will happen is if there's a recession, there's layoffs. If there's layoffs, people can't pay mortgages and they're going to get in a tough situation. So keep that in mind. So going through the short sale process, step one, get educated about the short sale process. Okay? Every lender has a different process. You can go onto their website and get their short sale package, which is a group of documents and a form that you need to fill out. Okay, set expectations accordingly. Okay, and that's primarily with the homeowner. Okay, I closed a lot of short sales and I didn't close a lot of short sales. The ones I didn't close were the ones where the homeowner just threw their hands up in the air and said, I'm done with this, just let it go. And that happens. You gotta prep the homeowner and let them know it's called a short sale, but by no means is it short. And they are going, the lender is gonna want everything except for a blood sample, pretty much. They're gonna wanna know all your financial numbers. Why is there a default? Why is there a hardship? Why should the lender consider it? And a job loss, a divorce, a death in the family, those are all legitimate causes for short sales, and the lenders typically go pretty easy with that. But as an agent, if you're going to process them, you got to take it seriously, and you got to be on the homeowner to make sure that they fill out everything, is signed, and your T's are crossed and your I's are dotted. Because what happens is the short sale negotiators at the bank, they have piles of paper like that typically. Now they still have piles, they're just not as many negotiators as there were in 2008. But if they get to your file and your documentation isn't complete, the purchase contract isn't complete, and the required paperwork isn't complete, they just put it on the bottom of the pile. And a lot of times they don't even tell you. So you also have to be diligent, and you have to follow up all the time with them. Okay, and that leads into step 3, prepare your short sale package with care. It's very important. I've closed short sales from the day we got the purchase agreement signed till we got short sale approval was about 20 days. So they can be done quickly, especially with the larger banks. That was Wells Fargo. One of the ones earlier this year that I did was with Wells Fargo. They're still pretty efficient, and they'll get through it quickly. Yes?
Do you have an average short sale about?
Time frame?
Yeah.
At least 4 months now
Okay.
would be the plan.
Okay.
It's in 2008, it was 6 to 8 months time frame.
This is 1 month versus probably 4 to 6. I know Max had one that lasted 18 years. Flat. They were both the Chase Bank first and second.
Yeah. Yes?
Have the rules changed if someone does a short sale? Are they gonna get 1099 down the line, or is it still in place where they're done?
The government exemption, as far as I know, has gone away. Okay? But what they need to do is they need to talk to their financial advisor, and if they are upside down, if they are basically bankrupt, that's still they won't get 1099 because of that. And again, I'll do my disclaimer. I'm not a real estate attorney. I'm not a financial advisor, but that's what I hear.
So if someone has a great job and they got transferred to another state, they can't sell their house, they're a little upside down, they're gonna get 1099, so they'd be better off just letting the
Yes.
bank take it.
Rent out, for heaven's sake, there's so many renters.
Yeah, they will get, there is,
That's what you have to.
yeah, exactly. You know, it's a matter of the difference between how a foreclosure will affect you and how a short sale will affect you. They affect both the lender and the homeowner. It's much more cost effective for a bank to do a short sale versus a foreclosure, because there's a lot of attorney fees involved and it can be very expensive. And if a homeowner forecloses, that's a major hit. And what is it, lenders 3 years?
Well, at least 7 years on a foreclosure, 4 years on a short sale,
Yeah.
Yeah,
conventional.
and sometimes less if they can prove hardship.
Yep.
1 year for VA if they can prove that it was a hardship.
Yep. Okay. Okay, next step 4, get non-institutional liens released early. As an example, this one short sale that I recently closed that was down in Oceanside, it had a first mortgage, it had a second mortgage, it had a credit union loan for a solar system, and it had a child support lien filed on the property. So you got to start working on any government if there's a lien on the property for tax basis and or child support or any of those. You really got to hustle to get those, because those institutions typically don't move very quick and they could affect your timeline. And what happens, what's the most important timeline with regard to a short sale is they will get a notice of default and a foreclosure date will be assigned. And it's your job to keep bumping that out by providing the lender information. If they don't hear anything from you, the property will foreclose, whether you have a purchase agreement or offer or anything. So it's very, very important. Follow up quickly to avoid delays. I can't stress that enough. If you want to get involved or you're doing a short sale, you got to stay on top of everybody. You got to make sure your buyer is engaged. A lot of the escrow offices don't like to collect a deposit, but I feel personally it's very important to collect that deposit from the prospective buyer that you're working with and get an escrow opened, because that kind of ties them to the transaction. If they don't have any skin in the game, there's a good potential, a better deal will pop up and they'll move away, and then you have to scramble and get another buyer in place and not let the lender know about it until you actually have the offer and everything's signed and say, hey, I'm sorry, but we kind of have to shift gears here. Okay, sell the property at fair market value. Okay, if you list a short sale, you're going to get inundated with investors that think that they can get the property on 60% of market value. It's nice thinking, but it's not going to happen. The lenders, especially now, back in 2006, 2007, the lenders would typically always do an appraisal. But now they have a very good idea, because most of them use CoreLogic's automatic valuation systems, and they get good value feedback right away, which is pretty close. And they'll have a certain range that they'll work. I found in general, maybe 8% to 10% you can get off as far as getting a deal off of a list price or what the presumed appraised value will be for the home. Because what will happen is you'll accept a low offer, you'll submit it to the bank, and they'll say, no, not going to fly. And then you've lost potentially a month's worth of time. Yeah?
One thing to remember is on the short sale, it's the seller selling the house, not the bank. Okay, so when you're negotiating with the buyer, it's between the buyer and the seller. Don't worry about
disagree.
Well,
I disagree. From the standpoint of the seller has already checked out. There's some of the best listings to work with because they don't care, whatever you say. Okay, whatever you say, it's good. They've already checked out. So if you get a low offer and they say, yeah, let's go with it, you're just wasting your time. So there has to be a certain amount of coaching there and the
Well, no,
value.
that's what I'm saying. Maybe you misunderstood me. I'm saying.
Yeah,
is
I
that
did misunderstand.
Don't just take any offer and throw it at the bank. Because the bank's not making they're making the final decision on the approval, not on the sales price. It's the seller's got to make the sale price. Because they're just gonna say, no, we don't want it.
Yeah,
The bank's never gonna tell you, oh, 400, we won't take 400, but we'll
Bank
take
counter,
450. They're not gonna
counter.
say that.
It's exactly what they did.
No.
Okay.
Is that what you see?
Counter it.
The bank told you what they'll take?
Yes.
Pretty much, yeah. And it's all based on what the presumed appraised value. That's the number that the lender is gonna shoot for. Because even these last two, and they didn't do that so much before, but now they're sending counters right at the end.
The bank is actually sending a counter on behalf of the
The-
seller.
Yeah, they say, it's coming from the seller, but the bank says, the offer's at 430, we want 450, please counter at 450.
Wow, okay.
So, both of the most recent ones, they both, in different lenders, they both did that.
You didn't pre-counter it before you send it to the bank?
George, your point is that it's
You didn't have the
legal
seller
to do
counter
that.
it first to bring it up a little bit?
Seller and the buyer, not.
The seller, no, it's the buyer.
So,
When you say
The
they
counter from the lender,
No,
They-
when you
they-
get an offer and it's really, really low, don't you have the seller counter it
Oh, yeah,
first
yeah,
to a
yes.
higher? Well, you
Yeah.
skipped saying that.
Yeah.
I think that's why we're having trouble.
So it's
Okay.
like ordering a payoff demand.
Yes.
usually the smaller banks or the investors will give you a number. Institutional, larger institutional banks. will tell you
B and A
smaller.
did.
I've never
Yeah, I mean,
done,
there's all.
go ahead, hold on,
Stick it to
guys.
raises their hands, guys. Go ahead.
I've never done a short sale, so there's a lot of talk going on here.
Yep,
So my understanding is that we have to price at fair market value. Don't try to undercut it to get offers, because the bank very likely maybe not always, may may suggest a higher price, a sale price.
Yes.
Am I correct?
correct, yes,
Okay, thank you.
yes. And,
Excuse me, Tom.
yep.
Sorry. You said they'll counter at the end. So when do you know that you're
Well,
ready to move forward? Like,
they potentially, you submit the offer and they potentially will counter right away.
right, okay.
So you'll get multiple counters, but right at the end, again, you think the deal's done and the lender, they give you a call and they say, hey, we need you to counter whatever.
So managing the expectations is really important. All the way until you know for sure it's a done deal.
Yep.
Okay.
Now, one of the exceptions may be is if the property is just torn up, trashed. Okay, the automatic valuation systems is nothing more than putting a property address into Zillow and getting a presumed value. They don't know what the property looks like. So it's up to you to say, hey, this property is trashed. Yes, if the property was at a good condition, that value would be valid. But there's leaks in the roof and the sink or bathrooms were torn up or whatever. You really have to push to get an appraiser to come out. Because a lot of times now they won't even send the appraisal, they'll just go off the valuation systems. So if the home is trashed, then you really gotta push for an appraiser to come out. And you have to be there and you have to point out all the problems so that the appraiser can take that into consideration for
Should
the
also
value.
be there with the BPO.
BPOs,
I just lost
You-
one because BPO, came in, they did single family resident instead of a condo, and the bank took the single family resident, and the price was $60,000 higher. And the bank would not budge, the investor would not budge. I sent them pictures, I even had my own appraiser go out and appraise it, and they just said, no, we're gonna foreclose.
yeah. Yep, it's,
Do everything.
BPOs, as a listing agent for a short sale, that, it's rare. I've never heard of a lender saying, hey, we're gonna do a BPO, where you would have the opportunity to do
Select
that.
Services does it that way.
Yeah. Okay, moving on.
All of them.
Number 7, only submit fully executed contracts. Okay, so you can't leave anything out. Everything's got to be signed by the buyer and seller. If it's not, it will be kicked back, and again, there will be potential delays. Agree on counter offer terms before accepting them. Have conversations with everybody, and like I mentioned, these last couple, right at the end, they sent a counter up in, they wanted 20,000 more. There's a good chance if your value is pretty close, it's just a bluff. It's just their procedure where they want to see, they obviously want to get as much a return as possible. And I've had buyers at that last counter say, no, we're going to let it stay as is, and the bank accepted it. And I've also had where buyers will just up it like $1,000 just to show a good faith, and that's been accepted as well. So that's basically it as far as the process goes. If you haven't done a short sale and you want help, I'd be glad to help you with that, walk you through. If you've done them before and you know they're a pain and you don't want to be involved in it, I'd also gladly accept your referral. So that's my sales pitch. Any questions?
What do you pay?
On the last ones that you've done,
Yeah.
is it through like an automated system where it's all online, or is it the still old-fashioned email or fax, the paperwork and all that?
They've gotten away from what was the
Equator?
Equator. They've gotten away from that.
Oh, so what are they using?
It
now?
was all. It was back to the fax.
Really?
Faxing your applications. in, so.
150 pages.
Yeah.
I think that's gonna be a short-term thing.
Yeah,
If you
that's-
found that the
Yeah.
short sales, you're gonna have to have a more automated system.
Yeah, if the volume increases, yes. Otherwise, it's going to go back to 6 to 8 months timelines. Yeah.
Have you found that they like the neutral third party, the escrow company, to do all the faxing? Because
No.
the last one I just did, they required that it was a neutral third party, that all the paperwork was coming through. And they wanted, and they talked to them versus talking to me.
Yeah, that's unique. I've had them accept
Stay away from
emails,
Cyber.
but even emails, they get lost if you don't follow it exactly what they're looking for, because they have automated systems to process the documents.
At least I'm not shredding them anymore.
So my concern was the last short sales that I've seen listed, they seem to have a really long market time. So my fear was, we get back into this and there's inventory to choose from, it's gonna be hard to get a buyer to stick. Did you find that with the last two you did?
No, because they were a little bit below market value, so they were pretty good deals. One of them had a paid, well, it wasn't fully paid, it was an owned solar system. So we got the bank, and that's another thing to throw out. That's something I learned new. If there's a utility loan, they actually take precedence over the first mortgage.
Yeah.
So this lender
Hero.
didn't know that, and it was San Diego Credit Union that had the loan, whatever credit union does all the loans for solar. And he sent me a document that defines what a utility loan, and it sets precedence. So it was an additional 20,000 that I got the first mortgage to agree to pay that off. So
Would that be like a hero too?
Yeah.
no,
No, that's
No.
totally
it's
different.
different. Yes.
Tom, didn't that change? Because they were subordinating to the mortgage.
Not anymore.
But now it's went back? It's went
Well,
back
for
to where
heroes, if you're
before?
talking about heroes, that's, as far as I know, that's changed. The first mortgages aren't subordinate to a
No,
hero.
they are.
Right.
It's not subordinate to anything.
Right.
Did you have?
Who's a fax question?
Yeah.
No, you already.
Okay, okay. Yes?
I this weekend tried to show a short sale, and the agent called me back and said
That could be the agent, and that, a lot of the changes in the paperwork that we have, like there's a whole section in the purchase agreement that says the home needs to be on the MLS. That was all because agents would pocket the short sales, wouldn't put it on the MLS. They'd advertise, get the buyer, and try and double end it.
Well, I don't know if that's what they were up to, but they said I couldn't see it.
Yeah, a lot of times the homeowners are just totally fed up and they don't want people trudging through. So they don't understand that it's gonna affect the potential for a short sale or, you know, so. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Got a lot of referrals from agents that have done them here.